we're asked to turn this general form into a standard form for a conic section. We can see that because the x squared term and the y squared term, this and this, are of different sign, it's going to be a hyperbola. So we'll expect something like minus parentheses x minus something all squared, and then plus something y minus something all squared. To do this, we're going to have to complete the square a couple of times. And before we do that, we want to get our things into the form of x squared minus or plus something in x, and y squared minus or plus something in y. In other words, we want to regroup these and then break up the interparts. So we'll take this as minus, and I'm going to factor the minus out from the x squared, and we're left with x squared plus 4x. The key thing there is to notice that the 4x term switched to positive as well, because we pulled out that minus sign. I generally find whenever I pull out something like a minus sign, I just quickly in my head multiply back through to make sure I got it right. And we see that minus x squared becomes minus x squared, but minus times 4x becomes the minus 4x we had to begin with. So we definitely want that. And then likewise, we're going to pull a 9 out of this and be left with y squared minus 2y. And again, for exactly the same reason, we go back and check that 9 times that is 9y squared, minus 9 times 2, which is minus 18y. So that's also the correct factoring. And then we're kind of stuck with this constant that comes along, and there's not much we can do about it. So you can complete the square in place, but that's a little bit tricky. So I'm going to go off to the side and complete each of these things on their own, and then come back and plug it back into that equation and then clean up. So our first thing is to take x squared plus 4x and complete the square on that. So what I do is I notice that my constant term here, the 2bx term, is 4. I need 2b equal to 4 or b equal to 2. And so I'm going to want this to be x and 2 with a square. We know that we keep the same sign, so it's x plus 2 quantity square. And then most importantly, we remember that we have to subtract off the magic number squared to correct for the fact that our estimate here is now too large. In exactly the same sort of way, we're going to have y squared minus 2y. And I'm going to say, oh, in this case, I want 2b to equal 2 or b equal to 1. And so we're going to end up with a y and a 1. And then we check the sign, and the sign here is negative, so the sign here should be negative as well. So I've taken my squared terms and turned them into perfect squares plus correction factors. So now we're ready to substitute back into our equation and see if we can clean up a little bit. So we have minus this, and we can replace it with x plus 2 quantity squared minus 2 squared. And we have plus 9 times, and we can replace this with y minus 1 quantity squared minus 1 squared, close parentheses, and everybody else. All right, and we really haven't done anything officially here. All we've done is change the form of something into something it's equal to, which is always allowed in algebra. Now what we want to do is distribute those things back through and then clean up the equation and try and make it look like the standard form for hyperbola. So I'm going to bring the minus sign in, and I'm going to get the first term, which is going to be minus x plus 2 quantity squared, and then I'm going to distribute this minus 1 times, and I already have a minus 4, which is really this guy. And likewise, I'm going to add, and I'll have plus 9y minus 1 quantity squared, and again, plus 9 times the minus 1 that we have from the correction term, this guy. And this poor minus 31 is coming along for the ride, basically almost till the end. Still not really as cleaned up as it could be, but we can keep going and say we'll have minus x plus 2 quantity squared plus 4. And then we'll have plus 9y minus 1 quantity squared, and then minus 9 minus 31 equals 0. Minus x plus 2 quantity squared plus 9 times y minus 1 quantity squared. We gather all the constants up, and we have 4 minus 9 minus 31, which is 4 minus 40, or minus 36, equals 0. So this is what we have so far. We know that in our standard form we have to have everything equal to 1, so I need to get a constant on the other side. So I'm going to add 36 to both sides and swing that over to the other side, giving us the following. And I know what I really want is equal to 1, so I'm going to take this and divide it out on both sides. I'm going to divide over here so as to get just 1, but then I'm going to end up with 36's on the bottom on the other side. And then we'll have all these guys coming along. And we're almost done, because all we really have to do is 2 steps. One, we need to simplify the fractions as much as possible. The negative x squared term is already simplified, but the other one we can cancel the 9 with the 36, and we end up with the following. And then we're really almost done. We just need to recognize that our bottom terms are really a squared and b squared themselves, and we can bring those squares inside, and we end up with something like minus x plus 2 over 6 quantity squared plus y minus 1 over 2 quantity squared equals 1, which is the standard form equation for a hyperbola where a equals 2 and b equals 6, and this is a vertical hyperbola since a is associated with the y term. And there we go.